Right now, in quote-unquote Canada, psychedelic drugs are highly illegal, about as illegal as something can be. The government considers them to have no legitimate medical use and to have a high probability for addiction or abuse, which is nonsense. But you'd never know that if you lived here, because right now, if you were so inclined, you could go to a website and buy psilocybin mushrooms online without any dark web shenanigans or onion browsers or whatever. Nobody cares. Nobody's doing anything about it. In fact, it's not quite clear if anyone could do anything about it. The police aren't allowed to open people's mail in Canada without a warrant, and they can't obtain a warrant unless they have reason to suspect a package presents a national security risk, which is going to be difficult to prove, about a fungus. This has become so pervasive that I've seen glossy posters advertising websites to buy shrooms displayed in store windows. I've even been served YouTube ads to go shop for this highly illegal product. There are psilocybin dispensaries operating out in the open, physical retail spaces that rent a storefront, charge sales tax, and are absolutely, categorically illegal. You can walk into a store, go shopping, pick up some illegal contraband, pay for it with your debit card, and walk out. And don't get the wrong idea here, I think that owns. I think it is very good that people are doing these things, though I think it is very bad that they have to. The Coca Leaf Cafe offers customers over the age of 19 access to coca products as well as microdoses of psilocybin mushrooms and regular doses for people with certain medical conditions. Coca is relatively harmless on its own, and it has a long and storied history of use by indigenous peoples, but it's also the principal ingredient in cocaine, so the government doesn't exactly take its sale or consumption lightly. As for the mushrooms, well, here's a direct quote from their website's FAQ. Is this legal? Am I going to get in trouble? You're not going to get in trouble. In terms of legality, we operate in the same gray market that allowed medical cannabis dispensaries to thrive for many years before legalization. We do not expect to have any legal troubles. The Vancouver police have indicated they don't consider microdoses to be a big problem. Even in a worst-case scenario where we had some legal troubles, keep in mind that authorities have never even tried to go after a client of a medical cannabis dispensary, even in jurisdictions where raids have been common. No police officer or judge in Canada would be interested in going after someone who ordered a tiny amount of mushrooms for medical use. And I think they're kind of overstating their case, but they're certainly not lying. In the period of time between the Canadian government announcing that it would legalize cannabis and it actually doing that, all sorts of illegal cannabis dispensaries opened up. These dispensaries were absolutely illegal. Like, they said gray market all the time, but no, it's illegal. It's black market. But they operated much the same way that the Coca Leaf Cafe does now. They were routinely raided and had all of their products seized, and then would just open up again later that day with more stuff.
How many times now have police and bylaw tried to shut down the cafe chain?
This will be the fourth time with the cafe locations.
So once again, you can't guarantee that this business is shut down for good?
At this moment, no, we cannot.
During those raids, the police just told the customers in the dispensary to leave. No arrests, nothing. These police officers let everybody off of the hook for a crime they saw them commit. And despite cannabis being legal now, some of these illegal dispensaries still operate. Some of them got licenses and became legitimate. Some of them just didn't. And they still sell drugs illegally through the mail, even though you could do it legally. But it's more profitable to do it illegally and not that risky, so why not just do that? And isn't that some absolutely bug-fuck wild nonsense? Isn't that just utter nutter butters? Because here we find ourselves with a set of laws that have been conclusively demonstrated to be arbitrary. A set of laws so backwards and pointless that not only does nothing bad happen when they are not observed, but law enforcement themselves view the hassle of enforcing them too great to be justified by the alleged harm their contravention poses. And yet, the laws remain on the books. The only area in which there seems to be any progress with regards to reversing Canada's ridiculous prohibitions on psychedelics and other arbitrary drug restrictions is in medical use for terminally ill patients, and even that is a Byzantine and opaque process that healthcare providers find arbitrary and impossible to navigate. We find ourselves in a situation where you or I, just random weirdos who want these substances for fun or whatever, can just buy them illegally. No problem, no risk, nothing. But somebody who actually needs them for treatment of their anxiety about how they're gonna die soon is forced to roll the dice and hope whatever bureaucrat they end up dealing with both understands their situation and cares about it. So that's pretty cool. Advocates for any kind of drug decriminalization are often told that the process has to funnel through medicalization first, that the priority has to be making these substances available for medical use first, and then that will lead to a shift in attitude that gets John Q. Public on board with full decriminalization for quote-unquote, 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 recreational use. It kind of feels like that means that people who need these substances for medical use are then forced to deal with whatever bureaucratic roadblocks are put in place to prevent quote-unquote, 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 recreational use, while actual quote-unquote recreational users get much easier access through the black market. And also, if public opinion actually mattered one iota, medical use of psychedelics would already be legal since it is overwhelmingly supported by the public. It doesn't really matter what people think if the government disagrees, and politicians are too afraid of being labeled soft on drugs to actually enact the desires of their constituents. And a lot of people will go off half-cocked about this and attribute this to some sort of zany conspiracy. Oh, big pharma dark money is keeping these medicines suppressed because they can't patent it, and it can compete with their medicines. And the truth is the opposite of that. Big Pharma is funneling billions into psychedelics, banking on some sort of policy change that makes that investment pay off. And that absolutely sucks, don't get me wrong. You're gonna do terrible, evil things with that research, obviously. But in this particular way, at this particular time, they are not the bad guy for that in particular. They're the bad guy for a lot of other stuff that they do. Another popular theory is that the government thinks people will become too difficult to control if they're allowed to free their mind, man. These entheogens are gonna remove your mental shackles, open your third eye, and let you see through their propaganda. Once we all take the sacred medicine, we'll realize we're all one, and all of our divisions will melt away, and we won't fight their wars anymore. And if you think psychedelics have the ability to free your mind of all bigotry, or to make you an open-minded and compassionate person, may I remind you that Joe Rogan famously loves psychedelics. Jordan Peterson is on record as having taken high doses of psychedelics. There's also a thriving neo-Nazi psychedelic scene. It's there, and it sucks. Also, you know, Charles Manson. The way I see it, as with most conspiracy theories, the truth is a little bit more boring. Like, it's just inertia. The old farts, who have most of the power and influence in this country, have highly entrenched ideas about how drug policy should work. And there's no guiding principle that makes these laws stagnate, it's just how they are now. Changing them seems like a whole lot to do for very little benefit, i.e. campaign funding. But okay, look, we're not going to arrest the people that are selling it, except sometimes when we do. And why do I care? Isn't the failure to enforce a law just de facto legalization? Sort of, I suppose. It's de facto legal for me, a middle-class white person, though obviously I personally would never purchase or consume an illegal drug, and any statement within this video that seems to imply or directly state otherwise should be viewed as satire. Remember those illegal cannabis dispensaries I talked about earlier, the ones the police would routinely raid? Well, I told you that they would let the customers go, but the employees? Not so much. They could face criminal charges, and often the front-facing workers would be arrested, while the store owners didn't face any consequences beyond having to replace their stock. And it's not as though cops have just stopped busting people for possession of illegal drugs. They still do it, they're just less consistent about when they do it. With black market drugs, there's also no way to ensure quality standards or dosage without checking it myself. I could get a contaminated product. I could get an inappropriately dosed product. I could get sold a normal, non-psychoactive mushroom, or a pile of wood chips, or they could just take my money and send me nothing. What am I gonna do? Call the Better Business Bureau? With some drugs, you can be sold analogs which might have very different safety profiles than the drug you thought you were getting. LSD, for example, has a lot of analogs, some of which have virtually identical safety profiles, and some of which can fucking kill you. Or worse, what if some dumpy doodle mixes up the orders, and when I think I'm getting LSD, I get MDMA, which I can't take because I'm on SSRIs, and now I'm hospitalized with serotonin syndrome. So while the drugs might be de facto legal, they are certainly not regulated. We have easy access to potentially unsafe, dangerous substances, and we just have to trust that the explicitly criminal organizations which provide them are taking the appropriate safety precautions, even though they have no real incentive to do that. Now, someone like the Coca Leaf Cafe, they seem to be in this for ideological reasons rather than making a quick buck, so you can probably trust that they're not going to poison you. But just some random website you found on Reddit? Not so much. But beyond any of that, the whole situation has some infuriating implications. Do we just accept that the state can impose arbitrary restrictions on us, restrictions that they themselves recognize as not worth enforcing? Why would we tolerate and obey laws that are neither in the interest of public safety or following public opinion? This is the state's equivalent of saying, because I said so. Even if you don't want drugs, even if you don't like drugs, don't you think it's kind of a problem? Don't you think it's kind of absurd? Like, if they can just tell us to do something for no apparent reason, doesn't that make you wonder what else they might impose on you? And let me tell you, the only ones I want making proclamations I must obey or be destroyed are the Hello and welcome to the eyeball zone. Here in the eyeball zone, we skirt the legality of putting eyeballs on small content creators, because it's kind of a gray market right now. Don't worry about it, it's probably going to be fine. Colonialism and fascism. Could these things be related? That's the question Chill Goblin asks in his video, Fascism and its secret best pal colonialism, which I guess kind of gives away the answer. Yes, they are related. Hey, guess what? It turns out they're pretty much the same thing, and we call it one or the other depending on who it's done to. The whole thing is pretty fucked up if you ask me. If you ask me, I think Chill Goblin is right, and both colonialism and fascism are bad ideas that we shouldn't do to nobody. Full disclosure, Chill Goblin and I are pals and buddies. But I would eyeball it anyway. It's a very well done video, and it's got like lots of cool little drawings. He's a good artist. Just go watch it. Go watch it. Do as I say. Do you have a small project you'd like to see here in the eyeball zone? Send me
no more than one email
to thoughtslimeeditor@gmail.com with the word eyeball somewhere in the subject line and pertinent details like your pronouns, and perhaps you will find yourself trapped here in the eyeball zone.